I'm Richard Hooper and this is Total Television reporting from the World Telecoms Council. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Dobardziev, who is the practice leader, emerging markets at Ovum. Now Angel, can you tell me a little bit more about Ovum's activities in emerging markets?
Yes, at Ovum we formed a dedicated practice focused on the emerging markets 2 years ago. We've been doing work in the emerging markets before that, but since 2 years ago we've made a step increase in our investment in researching the emerging markets. So we've opened offices in China, in India, in the Middle East, in Dubai, and in South Africa. And we're in the process of opening an office in Brazil, in Latin America as well. So we've made a huge expansion in our efforts and resources in researching these markets, to the point that right now about 30% of all of Ovum's research and consulting activities focus on the emerging markets, and we're keen to grow that proportion to 50% in the medium term.
Now, what are the main drivers for finance and investment in the emerging markets?
Well, clearly, with the mature markets stagnating growth and growth in the emerging markets still going at double-digit rates, I think the growth opportunity is the key attraction. So there is a huge mass, billions of people that have just had their first taste of communication services, in most cases mobile communication services, and there is still a significant proportion of the population that hasn't got access to any communication services, let alone more advanced communication services. So there is a significant growth opportunity in the emerging markets, and from our perspective, we're fascinated by some of the business models that we're seeing in the emerging markets, and how some of the innovations and some of the technology is applied to some very different and unique environments. With clearly income levels varying very wildly, in sort of very different cultural and political environments, and that, from an analyst perspective, that is a fascinating thing from our perspective.
How big a part will broadband play in this growth in emerging markets?
Broadband will play a huge part. So far what we've seen is the needs of the population being satisfied with basic voice services. I think in the days of the monopoly, before the advent of mobile services, the communications markets were dominated by the former monopolies, which more or less starved the population of communication services. Services were inefficient, unreliable, and very expensive. Right now, with the competition among mobile service providers, we see huge penetration of basic voice mobile services. The next sort of phase of growth will be in broadband services, and that will mean all sorts of data services that we see right now today, from accessing the internet to content, applications, and later on video services. The challenge will be in terms of enabling the technology that will provide access to the customer in what we call in the trade the last mile to accessing that customer, where there is insufficient mobile capacity to do it. So what are the alternatives in that case? Will it be fiber services? Will it be fixed wireless services such as WiMAX, or will it be mobile technology such as HSPA or LTE? And the other factor that will determine growth will be the backhauling, or transporting that traffic from that last mile of services back into the core networks and across countries and continents. And we're seeing significant investment as well in that perspective. So what we expect going forward is actually significant increase in competition as some of the established mobile markets get more saturated and the attention shifts toward exploiting that broadband opportunity. And from a recent study that we've done on broadband pricing, or pricing of broadband service in the emerging markets, we see that pricing is still very high, in some cases 2 to 3 times higher than the broadband prices in the mature markets, where obviously incomes are far larger. So broadband still is unaffordable to the mass market, and as we see more competition, we'll see significant acceleration in growth in sort of access and connections.
Now, what about the use of mobile banking in these emerging markets? I mean, what's the next step for that?
Mobile banking is another huge opportunity in the emerging markets. In simple terms, between 60 and 80% of the population in many emerging markets don't have access to banking services, basic branch services, bank accounts, and sort of things like that. The branch network is underdeveloped, whereas at the same time mobile penetration is very high in these markets, and the users are getting comfortable with the practice of transferring airtime among each other, which serves as a sort of a currency between them, and also trust the mobile operators with some of their prepaid balances, and most of the services in these markets are based on the prepaid model. So we already have a situation where there is already some trading and transferring of sort of currency, airtime, untapped demand for banking services, and as a result, we're seeing significant growth of mobile banking services where they're executed properly, such as M-Pesa, which is the famous example in Kenya, or a Smart in the Philippines, or in unique markets. The next step, and we're already seeing the platform for that, is actually growth across markets where services are interoperable among each other, so users can transfer not just within a particular country and a network within that country, but actually across networks and across countries. And addressing the regulatory issues in terms of who can actually provide these services, which vary from country to country. But overall, at Ovum, we are very optimistic about the potential of these services, and we expect in 5 years' time between 30 and 40% of the mobile users in the emerging markets to also be mobile banking users in it, which is a significant growth and significant population of mobile banking users.
Angel, thank you for your time.
Thank you.